Welcome to Cosmic Brilliance and today's show titled Accessing Your Akashic Records to Understand Your Soul's Purpose and Plan. Now, accessing your records is one of the most important self-empowerment tools on this planet. So this show, part one with guest Lisa Barnett, is geared for people new to this topic and for all family ages and members. This information literally allows you to reclaim your soul's birthright. Folks, if your kids are living at home, like most are, bored and stressed out of their minds, they need an Akashic record reading. Did I ever tell you I was bossy? They need an Akashic record reading to regain the full map clarity of their soul's intent and mission, to fully understand with compassion their present life challenges and what they need to focus on presently. Everyone needs clarity, right? And having one or two good Akashic record readings can equal years of regular therapy. So, especially by someone who is as unconditionally loving as my guest, Lisa Barnett. Now, I first heard about Lisa from two dear client friends, Janet and Tim, who had had sessions with her. And they found her roadmap that she provided for the soul extremely helpful. Now, Lisa is an example of someone who is very grounded and who is living her purpose. Longtime marriage, mother of four, international best-selling author of The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records and From Questioning to Knowing, 73 Prayers to Transform Your Life. This is two of her books, so that you know. And also a brand new book, Your Soul Has a Plan, Awaken to Your Life Purpose, will soon be available this fall 2022 on Amazon. She's also the founder of the Akashic Knowing School of Wisdom, where she has taught thousands of students worldwide to access their personal soul plan and receive guidance working directly with Akashic record keepers. And you'll find out who those are in a minute. With more than 20 years of experience in Akashic readings and quantum healing sessions, Lisa helps clear outworn soul contracts, traumas, release karma and vows, and remind you of your unique soul path that you agreed to do as a soul in this present life incarnation. And many of us forgot and are in the process of just remembering. What could be more important than that, really? I feel very fortunate that Lisa has agreed toward the end of this show to guide us all through a process that will release our outdated soul contracts and vows that we no longer need in order to step forward free to live our best life. So with that, welcome, Lisa. I'm so happy you're here today with your loving and playful presence.
Oh, thank you, Marilee. I am thrilled to be here with you and everyone. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get right to it. And I'm going to have you define for our audience what the terms Akashic record means.
Absolutely. So your Akashic record is the recording of your soul's journey through all time, space continuum. Like, wow, it's a lot. And the way the record keepers explain it, they say is when we individuate from source in that moment, everything we do and our every place, earth, planet, other dimensions, everything we are is recorded in this etheric energy that we call the Akashic record or Akasha. Now, Akasha is actually a Sanskrit word that means or translates roughly to sky or ether. So if you can imagine that ether is the quantum field of the all, it's recorded in that energy and space. And for us humans, it's usually easier to kind of imagine that it's creating books or a whole library for you. So each and every one of us has our very own personal library with thousands and thousands and thousands of books. And because we have so many books, we need our own personal librarians. And that is who we often refer to as the Akashic record keepers or the Akashic masters or beings of light, because there's not just one, there are many in service to you to help you understand, remember, reclaim some of this amazing information about who you are as this beautiful, infinite, divine, wise soul.
Woohoo! Nothing like having a big team on our side.
Right?
Now, one of the reasons I chose you specifically for as an Akashic record reader is because you as a soul have a high level expertise on the other side before incarnating into this life. And I really want you to share that story with the audience because it's awesome.
Oh. So let's see, I'm not 100% sure which story you're speaking about, but what the record keepers said to me when they asked me many, many years ago, they said, please help us to really anchor the vibration of the Akashic field back to Earth. And we want you to start a school and teach people. And at that point, I was a mom in the suburbs with a little, a lot of little babies. And I looked at them, with my third eye and said, what are you, nuts? I mean, why me? I've got all these kids. I'm overwhelmed. You're crazy. You got the wrong woman here. And so the why me apparently is what they answered. And they said, because you were one of us. And I said, wow, really? I had no idea that was even possible. And so they said, really, the way some of these things work is that when a soul originally when a soul individuates from source, we go on a journey, and some of us go into this field of energy that is known as the Akasha. And we decide, I want to kind of study up on what's out there before I go on a random journey. And so we go into this big etheric library and we start studying, and sometimes we stay and we become Akashic record keepers ourselves. And they said, that's what you did. And then after whatever, thousands or millions or billions of years, no time and space. So, then you decided to go on your journey and you went to all sorts of other realms and worlds and planets. And you've been very galactic and traveling all over. And now you've been on Earth forever. And so they said, I've had almost 1,000 lifetimes on Earth, which I find very appalling. What am I, that slow? It takes me 1,000 lifetimes to figure this out. Anyway. So when they said all of that, I thought, wow, how can you say no to that, right? So, of course, they convinced me, and I said, yes, I will start a school and I will do whatever you ask. So that's been my journey for the last 30 years.
Well, we'll get more into that, but that was exactly the story I wanted to read. Very, very telepathic, because I really like to have people who are have a huge expertise, and nothing like working for millions of years as an Akashic record librarian anyway. So we're in good hands, folks. So when you ask the record keepers to answer simply one question, which was, what really is our soul purpose? What did they answer you?
To follow your soul's plan.
There you go. There you go. Can't be easier than that. Thus, why everyone needs an Akashic record reading.
Right, because the truth about your soul's plan, which is this third book that'll be coming out this fall, your soul's plan is complicated, right? And so I always find it interesting because I have so many clients who come to me and they're like, what's my purpose? And I always feel a little bit bad because I'm like, well, the good news is most of us have 3 to 6 purposes. And that would be, to write a book, to have a family, to support these souls, to share this gift, to do a bunch of sharing of our old gifts. And so it's never a job description. It's not like to get a job at, this company. It's always much bigger and they intertwine and overlap. And so purpose is, when we think, what's my purpose? It's not one thing. It's really following through on this whole huge plan we set out for ourselves. And that includes supporting other people and sharing our gifts and learning and growing as a soul, because part of our main reason for coming to Earth is always to learn and to grow and to develop as a soul.
That is so true. And that's the purposes of why you teach. And the purposes of our shows is for people who are curious, because I can't imagine what it's like not to be curious and not to be interested in growing, since that is the reason for soul evolution. So, okay, so here's the next shocker question. Ready? Okay, so I heard you mention that there tends to be an average number of lifetimes that it takes to work through patterns, abandonment, ancestral lineage work when one incarnates on Earth, or Terra, as she's called galactically. So do you want to share with people what you found out? And people, don't freak out. Okay.
So what they told me was that it takes most of us about 600 to 800 lives to complete this kind of karmic wheel of life and all of the learning and the growth. So 800, I thought I was appalled at that many, many, many years ago. And then they came along recently and said, yeah, but you've been coming about 1,000 times. That's why I was like, what, am I really that stupid? You've got to be kidding. But the truth is, they also were very kind and said, and many of us come back again and again to assist,
to serve, and help. Yeah, that small print there.
Right. And then all the time we go, am I done helping yet? And they're like, yes, of course, but you can always come back if you want. And then here I am again,
Well, I'm glad you're here. I really am. And you've been so prolific and such a beautiful example. I'm just thrilled for this show today. Now, it was about, you and I end up living close to each other, which is really fun. And folks, I'm going to have my own reading with her in a couple days. So that'll be fun. Now, in our neck of the wood, it's a very mover shaker place and has been, sets trends way ahead of time. It's Marin County, Northern California. So it was about 20 years ago that I started hearing about Akashic record readers. Why didn't we hear about that before? I'd like you to tell people a little bit about the history and what that was.
Absolutely. So I'll give you my little story because I think stories are more fun. Right. So many, many, many years ago, probably 35 years ago, I was more of a psychic energy healer. And every once in a while, I would be doing a reading and I would get this huge, expansive information all about like everything, right? It was not just, kind of this life and what's in their energy field or their chakra system or their aura. It was like, whoa, everything, their past lives, their future, their plans. It really was kind of the beginning of the kind of soul plan information I was starting to receive. And I'd think, wow, that was amazing. I wonder what that was. And I was a little slow on the uptake. I never thought to say, who am I speaking to? Who has this big booming voice? Anyway, the silly thing is it went on for almost 5 years before I finally got that it was the Akashic record keepers. And so I was familiar. I had been told about the Akashic records when I was doing my my healing training and my psychic training. And but I was taught that you can go up to the gate of the Akashic record for your client and get healing energy and information for them, but you were never allowed to go into the Akashic record. And so I could see little energy coming down and filling my clients up as I was finishing doing a healing, and never in my wildest dreams imagined that they would actually speak to me. So after about 5 years, they got my attention well enough, and I got like, this is the record keepers speaking to you. And I was like, what? How can that be? I was told that you can't go in the records. And so what they explained to me was that back in the Dark Ages, so around 1000 AD, the record keepers, pulled the vibration away from planet Earth. I believe it really coincided in many energetic ways with kind of the end of the Mayans, like the Mayans kind of disappearing also, because the Mayans are believed to have been the record keepers on Earth. A lot of that energy was connected. So they said during the Dark Ages, people were misusing the information they could get in the Akashic field to win wars, find gold, really to do whatever they damn well pleased, right? So they were like, So they said, obviously, the vibration on Earth and the conscious level of people is not high enough for them to have access to this huge amount of information. And so they pulled the energy away so that the regular muggles on the planet could no longer access the information, that only the mystics and the wise beings, the shaman or the monks or the mystics could still access this energy and information, but the average people could not. And so they pulled the vibration away. So we kind of lost that connection. We lost that memory. It left Earth. And so it wasn't until around 1970 when the record keeper said, it's time, right? We're moving into a new age, right? We're moving into the age of Aquarius. The vibration is higher. We're moving into a new golden age over the next couple hundred years, right? This is the golden age we're creating right now. And they said, it's time, it's important. And so they basically said to me, we've tapped a lot of shoulders over the years, right? But few respond. And so, and I really understood that, because I was tempted to think I was crazy also, or when they said start a school, I'm like, that's so much work. Are you kidding me? So, tempting to say, oh, that's crazy. But I felt the call so strongly personally that I said, yes, of course. I have always felt very honored to be invited to bring this, to help, to bring this work back to humanity. And so.
And you're the perfect person for it, because you did it for millions of years too. So there you go. You're cutting, you're cutting edge. You're providing a school and all that. Now, let me backtrack just a second. So there are guardian record keepers that oversee the records. Can you explain to people who they are, what they're a part of, or if they're connected to source, sure, that kind of thing?
Yes, thank you. Because that's, of course, very important for people to understand that What the record keepers are not is they're not ascended masters. They are not angels. They are not your loved ones who have crossed over, right? They have never been human. So what they are is pure source energy, really pre-journey. So as I mentioned, what the record keepers had said to me was, when we individuate from source, most of us go off on a journey through the universes and galaxies, and we go out and have fun and play out there in the big grand worlds. And some of us stop to study. I was talking to a good friend of mine today, and we're planning, I'm planning a trip to Scotland next month. And I realize I spend so much time researching, reading books, of course, travel websites, all of these different things. I research and research. I've got a stack of papers I've printed out, and I thought, oh, I was probably a great librarian. That must be where this came from. I'm really
and cosmic researcher.
A cosmic researcher. So it just is all kind of part and parcel of who I am. I always find it a little bit funny. But so what they say is that these are just pure beings of source energy and light. And because they've not been on their own journey, they have no judgment. They have no kind of filters or beliefs or thoughts. So it's interesting often when someone will come to me for a reading, sometimes they'll get on the phone and they'll say, I'm kind of nervous, like I'm afraid what they're going to think. And I'm like, nope, they have zero judgment. They're pure love, just pure love. Doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter what you've done or what you think you've done that's been so awful, because they have no judgment. They want to help us and support us to see the bigger picture, to understand why we sometimes make decisions or choices that maybe were not what we consider, good. But they themselves are pure source beings of light and love. And the healing is phenomenal, because we do the healing in this quantum field of source, and there is no time space in the quantum field. And so it's really makes it easy for me to see all these different lifetimes and heal them, because you're in the quantum field. So it's an amazing place to work.
Simultaneous.
Right.
That's why it can happen so quick. That is so comforting, because most people, one of the reasons we're not more telepathic is people are still holding shame and self-judgment and things, and they don't want secrets to be known. We have to get past all of that. And so it's so wonderful that they have the Akashic record keepers who hold this pure, unconditional, loving support, and are kind of innocent in an interesting way. In a way. Now, can you also share your understanding of angels, and does that relate to the record keepers, or completely different, and how many angels are
interesting
people?
Yeah.
And also some humans say they were angels and others say you can't be angels. So
right.
So I'm interested on your take on all of that.
Sure, absolutely. So you can be angels. This is what, everything I know came from the record keepers. And usually one of the reasons I love to do readings, Akashic record consultations and healing sessions, because people ask the most amazing questions, and I get information that I probably never would have thought of asking, right? Because anyway, I wouldn't. So here's a couple of interesting layers I've gotten. And what we often, many of us began as very big angels, right? Like seraphim or Elohim angels. And then because it's like when you individuate from source, you're such a huge energy, you really don't fit in a little human body. And as we know, as we go, we have aspects of us, of that huge soul, aspects of us having all of these lives in all these places, planes and dimensions, really all at the same time. If you can kind of wrap your brain around it, I just don't even try because I don't know that the human brain is capable. But so they said to me a long time ago that I was seraphim. Mm-hmm. And also very galactic. So when they asked me to start the school, I said, again, why me? I must have had a lot of self-doubt. And so they said, because you've been a galactic traveler for so long, you're not like, a lot of times now people think, oh, I'm a star seed from the Pleiades, or I'm from Sirius, or I'm from Arcturus, or I'm from Orion. But for most of us, that might be the last place you lived in that galactic memory. But many, I would say, or most of us probably even, have traveled to multiple worlds. And so I think when I look back at wonderful TV shows that we grew up on, like Star Trek, right? You're like, that was me, And so what the record keepers had said was, because you're so galactic, you can channel all these different access prayers to help all the different star seeds open their own records. So back in the 70s and 80s and even 90s, and I think probably still, there's a couple different schools, but each one of them usually has kind of the ones who use the kind of access prayer system to move you into the energy. As far as I know, they only have one prayer. Mm-hmm. And the two or three that I'm familiar with are all Pleiadian, because that was the first prayer was a Pleiadian prayer. So when they said, we'll give you all these different access prayers, I was like, sure, okay.
Absolutely.
And so I have now channeled 8 different access prayers, which are, with different, so there's a Syrian prayer and a Pleiadian prayer and an Arcturian prayer and an Orion prayer. And there's actually an angel prayer, because going back to Angel's story, a lot of us have also been guardian angels in life between lives. Mm-hmm. We can't go quite back to being seraphim in that way, but when we're in this kind of human karmic cycle pattern, which is now over, and we'll talk more about that, but we can go and be guardian angels for others. And so for many of us, we've been angels in both ways, kind of the original big angels and then kind of the life between life guardian angels, because everyone has at least 3 guardian angels. So I also channeled that access prayer, the angel access prayer. Recently, I just downloaded an Andromedan prayer and a Lyran prayer. Yes. And then there's one that I call the Galactic Traveler. And that is for people like me who have spent a lot of lives on starships.
Yes. Well, that was another reason. Thank you so much that I was attracted to you. And we talked about that. We're going to do part 2, folks, when she gets back from Scotland, because that will be a mystical experience, which will have more downloads. And I was attracted to you because you're not just talking about the Earth, Akashic Records. You are expanding into my passion, which is everyone remembering that they are truly universal galactic humans. Yes. So we'll get into that for the second part, but we want to do enough of the introduction as you're doing beautifully. I just love your stories and explanation. Have you ever run into a human archangel?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Rare. Definitely very rare. No, I'm going to say, no. So I definitely run into seraphim and Elohim angels embodied as humans. Every once in a while, there is a human that holds a big aspect of one of the archangels. Again, pretty rare. I maybe bump into, I'm going to say, a half a dozen a year, maybe. Mm-hmm. So they're definitely out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is fascinating, and then if we can start to access one of the things that we're connecting when we start to learn to access our own Akashic records. We can ask exactly, who have I been? Where have I lived? What else have I done? Or what other aspects of me are actually still out there doing that?
Exactly. And that's where we get into the whole multidimensional experience. Now, I really want you. It's a great story. And many of our Starseed listeners and new people on board are going to relate and love your story, because I always like to ask people, what was your awakening? Because people are still awakening. I certainly am. I'm in the process of awakening. And you have the best story starting when you're really young. So please share that.
Oh, I'd love to. Absolutely. So my really first memory was when I was about 3 years old. And I really remember standing in the kitchen with my mother, and I was probably trying to tell her I didn't like whatever it was she was cooking, because I was just never a big fan of food. And so I was probably trying to describe or tell her something. And I just remember thinking, like, why isn't she understanding me? Kind of looking at my hands and thinking, oh my God, I'm trapped in a body. And it was a bit of a panic. It was that kind of shocking, like, oh no. And telling her, I want to go back. I want to go back. I want to go home. I want to go back. And my poor mom, I always say, oh, my poor mother, she'd be like, but you are home, honey. I have no idea what you're talking about. And of course, I was born to basic atheists, agnostics back in the day. And it was the 60s, right? And people were leaving religion and going for science. And that kind of made a lot of agnostics back in the day. And so it was pretty...
3 years old?
Yeah.
When you had this first realization.
When I had that first realization.
Shit.
Right? And so I think they thought I was a little crazy, but anyway. But then when I was 13, so what I realized happens, and I've met quite a few little ones, toddlers who kind of have that same reaction to the world. And usually their parents don't understand what they're talking about when they say, I want to go home. But they're aware that they can remember being, part of the etheric world. And my memory at 3 was I could imagine myself, I could remember myself and my friends, like my 2 best friends, the 3 of us in kind of etheric bodies, telepathically conversing. And not having to use all these words. And so it was...
Excuse me for a sec. These are your 2 best friends and you incarnated here, but all sharing your memories of being light body beings.
Well, that was my memory of us before embodying. And then I had these 2 best friends. So then I met them. Well, I met the first one not long after, probably I was 4, and our parents became best friends, and she and I became best friends. And then in first grade, we met another friend. Then the 3 of us became friends, kind of best friends. And Shubi, my first best friend, lived across the street. Her parents moved across the street from us, and we walked to school and we walked home and we spent the night at each other's house, and we were like sisters. And then Marcia became our 3rd dear, close soul sister. We just, how you have those people, sometimes once in a lifetime that you just know you've known them forever. And that's what they were. They were my soul sisters. And what happened when I was about 13, Marcia went into the hospital with really bad headaches, and she had brain surgery, and she never woke up from her coma. And during that kind of experience, it triggered my memory of having been a healer and feeling like I should be able to heal her. And I'm like 13 years old, right? And I'm like, I don't even know how to pray. I've never even been to church. So I don't, and I kept thinking, I need to pray. I need to heal her. And So it really kind of triggered my remembering even more of other lifetimes and my purpose, or one of my purposes. And then she actually crossed the next day. And so
Wow.
that was very, very traumatic, but it woke me up at that point of, being like a teenager at 14. I literally started to read all the spiritual books I could find. And it was the early 60s. My parents had just moved to California. Baba Ram Dass wrote Be Here Now back in 68. I think that was the first book I picked up off of my parents' coffee table. So that kind of started my spiritual studies at, 13, 14. So,
and TM and all that movement.
All of that, right? All of that was just coming, to the United States, and was really just kind of part of my path. And so I started studying it when I was in high school. And, I always laugh. I say my favorite book was called Journeys Out of the Body. I was still trying to escape. I'm like, okay, journeys out of the body. How do I get out of here?
We understand that there's always reasons for everything, but when you had this two best friends, soul sisters dying, did you do the thing like a lot of people do, which is give up any trust of source or anything? Did you go through a whole kind of darker night of the soul thing?
I did for a very long time, as a matter of fact. So after Marsha crossed, for me, that was kind of the trigger to wake me back up again. And then from there, I started studying, right? I studied everything I could through high school. And I actually studied philosophy at the university. And Shubi and I were good friends. And we, kind of try and figure out what happened and why did she die? And this is unfair, but we still had each other. And so I was continuing on my spiritual path, just happily reading everything I could and trying to figure out the universe and, in the process. And then at 19, Shubi died in a really freak car accident. And that's what totally triggered my dark night of the soul. That's what I just said. How could you take my two soul sisters from me? I've been abandoned. I was more than angry at Source. And I basically kind of flipped off the world and Source. And I said, so what do humans come to do? And I could work, make money, travel, have fun, party. I don't know. At that point, it was, the 70s in California. And so partying was high on my list of things to do. And so I basically just wrote off my whole spiritual path. I went and got a job in advertising. I actually had a degree in commercial photography. I got a job in advertising and traveled around the world and drank way too much, did every drug that came by, San Francisco in the 70s. So it was a wild time. And I experienced life, which, in hindsight, I think is interesting because, of course, many years later, I also experienced what many of us humans do is we've experienced a lot of guilt and shame and regret. And oh my gosh, I could have been a healer at 21 or whatever, instead of 35 because I wasted 15 years. Oh, I'm so sorry, and the record keepers, this is a good story about them. I said, did I just totally blow it? I was so conscious. And they, of course, they laugh and they say, of course not, dear one. You were exploring the world. You were understanding humanity. You were experiencing life. And they've said you would not be anywhere nearly as
relatable,
compassionate, all of that, non-judgmental if you hadn't done all the things you did, right? Because of everything I did, there's no way I could judge anyone else. So I kind of was like, oh, that makes sense. Thank you.
Exactly. Wow.
Yeah.
So you basically, it's wonderful because you had the whole human experience. You came in with actually memory, then doing like what's so common, right? With the younger kids, I always like telepathize them going, how are you doing stuck in that really small body? And they start cracking up, you can't share that with the parents, but they just start laughing. Like, not really good.
Right. I know. It's crazy.
So you did that, then you did the whole party thing. Now, a couple things going on. Then you basically did the whole worldly thing. So let's talk about soul contracts and kids and stuff. So how did that all enter in?
Well, once I kind of had done that whole crazy thing, and I'd been in advertising, and I'd made money, and I'd traveled a bunch, and I'd had a lot of fun and all of the above, then I got married. I was like, okay, I'm 30. I should be getting married. And so I got married, and my husband loves kids. And I always thought, well, maybe one, maybe two, And when I married him, he had a house that had like 5 bedrooms. And he said, oh, we'll fill it up. And I'm like, over my dead body, right? Again, one, maybe two. Anyway, and then it was very odd because we tried for many, many years to have a child, and it took 4 years or so before we had our first child. So, and I was 38 when he was born. So now I'm getting older. And so he was about 11 months old. And I said, well, I guess if we're going to have, another kid, we better hurry, because last time it took 4 years and I'm not getting any younger here. Right. And so it turns out I got pregnant right away with twins, identical twins. Right. So they're only a year and a half younger than their brother, identical twin girls. And their brother. So all of a sudden I had a 1.5-year-old newborn baby twins, and my nephew moves in with us, and he's 14. And so all of a sudden I literally went from like 1 to 4 virtually overnight. Right?
Oh, thus all the bedrooms.
There it is. Fill up the house. I did. Okay. I'm like, and so, these are the kind of the funny things. Having the records has been such a life-saving bit of wisdom for me, because I, at that point, thought, okay, this is crazy. I'm 40 years old now. I have 3 babies under 2 and a teenager. And I never figured I was cut out to be a mom anyway. That was not my thing. Right. And so, some people always want to be mothers, and I didn't anyway. But so I said to the record keeper something like, what the hell is going on here? I go to victimhood, which I always think is interesting. And they again laugh at me, and they say, you wrote 4 soul contracts with 4 souls to be their mother, and they had to figure out how to get in. And so I had,
Clever.
So the girls came in together, and
oh my God. There you go. Just like, okay, we got to go we got to go in now, or we're not going to make it.
Now or never, that's for sure. Right. And so, so it was interesting. And my nephew, who came to, obviously my brother and his wife, he had come in longer ago, and he became our 4th child. He kind of moved in with us and pretty much stayed. So now I have a grandbaby, which is very exciting and it's wonderful. It was one of those very surprising things to me.
And you also were able to take it from, a little bit of the, victim feeling like, oh my God, overwhelmed, understandably, too, because you now had access to the soul contracts. Right. How many kids did you have a soul contract for, and then you could put it and you're like, okay, all right. So we're just going to do this all at the same time. Right. Yeah. Which moves you into co-creator rather than victim.
Absolutely.
Would you say that that's one of the signs of, we don't like to label here. Labeling is misused here, but you'll get what I'm talking about. One of the signs of the lessons learned when you're, quote, a younger soul versus an older soul is the victim versus understanding you have choices and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
You want to
well, yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's interesting is that, as humans, we're often kind of raised in that energy and vibration. So all of us, no matter how awake we are, that is the collective energy is much more of the low vibrations of shame, blame, guilt, fear, all of those lower vibrations. That's what we are living in on our planet, or have been. We're breaking through that. But so it's common for most of us to go at least, maybe it's a toe into victimhood or whatever. Some of us only wallow there. But to me, what I've realized is that having access to your own Akashic records really allows you to understand the bigger picture and immediately, kind of pull you out of that pattern. So for me, when I was like, oh my gosh, like, what the heck? And why did this happen? And this is crazy. They're like, you wrote the contracts. And I was like, oh, you're right. Okay. Sorry. I'm good. So it just immediately would, wake me up and make me go, oh, you're right. My choice. I just forgot. And again, that is, one of the kind of the big pictures of working in the records. We embody, we forget, right? We come in, we have immediate amnesia. We'd have no idea that our soul wrote a plan or what might be in it. All of those relationships that are supportive and or challenging and or have karma attached, right? Which are usually the challenging ones. We often feel like a victim if we have, say we have terribly alcoholic or abusive or narcissistic, or we have parents who have stuff. And so we often will think, what's wrong with me? We go to low self-worth, low self-esteem, doubt. We blame ourselves for that family. Or, we go to victimhood because we have such a terrible family. But the truth is that we as souls pick this to learn and grow, to sometimes help and support those people, to break patterns, right? There is a huge, huge collective soul contract on the planet about ending abuse for the world, for humanity. And that means that probably 60, 70, 80% of the light workers have picked abusive families in order to end that abuse and not pass it on, because it's been passed on for thousands of years. So when we can look at childhood, and it doesn't mean it's any the less awful or horrific or sad or painful or any of those things. It just means that we, as that big ancient soul, said, I've got this. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to end that pattern in that family, in that ancestral lineage. I'm going to do my own work around compassion and forgiveness. I'm going to help to change these patterns on the planet. Yes. And when we can look at life that way, instead of, I got screwed and I have this awful world and life, and so I think I'll just drink myself to death, right? I mean, so there's your kind of choices, simplistically.
Right, or the over-anxiety. That's so important, especially at this time, to remember that, because, of course, we're making these decisions from knowing we're infinite and immortal. It's kind of like, okay, I will, end of story. And then you get here.
Right, we're like, oblivious.
Holy. Yeah. So that is such an important story. Now, let's talk about your abilities. So obviously you had knowingness when you were young, but also you were evidently clairaudient because you were hearing like a booming voice at a young age. So
Yeah.
explain that a little bit for people.
Well, I remember as a child, I guess you would say clairvoyant. I kind of joke about my clairvoyance because I say my clairvoyance needs glasses. So I get pictures, but they're very out of focus. It's kind of silly, but it works for me. And I'll try to explain that. But so kind of imagining or remembering the souls, like me and my soul sisters in this etheric realm, just communicating without all these words, and knowing that it was like, oh my God, I'm trapped in a body, and all of those things. And so, and I used to see ghosts, and that was upsetting. And I'd always have to send them away, like, okay, bye, please, please, please. I don't want that, So I actually closed down a lot of my gifts as a child. So when the kind of big booming voice came back through, I had really trained as an energy healer for many, many years. And so I was, weird clairvoyance. I don't know. I think always a little bit of clairaudience. I think most of us are clairaudient. We just don't realize that is either it, for 90% of us, it's in our head, in our voice, right? People say, but it sounds like me. It's like, that's just the way it works. The booming voice came through because they were trying for 5 years to get my attention, and I was very dense. So, right. It's like they used to yell at me because that was the only way to get my attention. Actually, kind of funny story. I was teaching people to access their records once. I had a little healing center near me here in Marin. And so I was teaching a class where I would train people to become Akashic record readers and consultants. And so I'm teaching them how to do this. And we had an odd number of students in the class. So somebody had to do a reading for me. And that's always so hard for a student, right? It's like, I got to read the teacher, right? Yeah. And I said, I'm really easy to read, right? My records are open books. I'm very easy to read. Don't worry. Anyway, so I give them simple questions, right? I'm trying to make it easy for them, first time kind of thing. And I'm looking at this young woman, and she's looking at me, and her face kind of crumbles, and she gets all teary. And I think, oh, God, what's wrong? Am I like gonna die? Is something
right?
I said, are you okay? What's wrong? And she said, they're yelling at me. Right. And I started laughing. I'm like, oh, they're just loud because I'm very dense.
Unconditional yelling.
Unconditional love yelling. They're just loud. I'm like, okay, you can turn the volume down. It's good. We got it. Anyway, that was very funny.
That is a cute story. That is so cute. Now, some people, now we know you're teaching, you teach for people to read Akashic records. And we all have our own insecurities around that. And some of us aren't even really that great at meditating. So does this require meditating? Like, talk to people a little bit about what's involved in that. Okay.
Right. Absolutely. So no, it doesn't require meditating. I know that there are some paths to the Akashic records where you would do a deep meditation for an hour, and maybe you could access that energy. But to me, that was way too hit or miss and hard, because I'm a little bit of a hyper person, honestly. So I'm not good at sitting still for an hour or two. I had friends who'd be like, oh, I meditate for 3 hours a day. And I'm like, wow, you don't have 3 babies in diapers. But right. So when the record keeper said, please help us, we will give you this 5-step wisdom prayer system. They didn't actually say it that way, but they said, we'll give you vibrational keys in the form of an access prayer to teach people to open their records. And really over the years of the work, it's become a 5-step wisdom prayer system. So there's an intention for clarity prayer. There's the access key prayer. We work in the records. Then there's and I call them prayers. It's very different than kind of a religious type prayer. It's just a word, but it's the information to then fill up with your highest Akashic energy and then close and lock the record. So it's turned into kind of this beautiful 5-step wisdom prayer system. And so you do not need to meditate at all. It energetically is very phenomenal because you can read the prayer and energetically feel the energy shift. And I will actually do this with the group. I'll open the group records to do some clearing of vows or out-of-date contracts and release some of the energies that's kind of blocking abundance and things like that. So people may very well feel that energy shift if you're really clear, sentient, right? If you're a sensitive, an empath, you might really feel it. People often feel that kind of as a swirly energy or a shift in energy. So it's simple, 5-step wisdom prayer system. And I do online. Now I do almost everything online. I rarely teach in person, although it's kind of fun. Every once in a while, I'll do a long weekend workshop in Sedona or something like that. I taught in Glastonbury, England, pre-COVID, right? Quite a few years ago. So it's fun to do events that way, but otherwise it's easier for everybody just to do them. I do live Zoom calls. So I'm holding the energy, teaching you the 5-step wisdom prayer system. I have manuals and tools. And so kind of meditative tools, but even the meditations they give me are like 10 minutes. They're more of a tool, like to call back your energy or to create a beautiful rainbow shield and different sorts of tools in kind of meditative form. But again, it's more like a guided visualization is probably a better word for it. So no, you don't have to meditate for 25 years before you can access your records.
Well, that's important because it's available to everyone now. Mm-hmm. And it's a question of guidance with you, so they can do this online and sign up online, right. All of that. Now, before we get to the beautiful period where we're going to release, where you're going to guide us through releasing old contracts, I have something that's rather controversial to say, but I have felt this way for 10 years, and I'm wondering your take on this.
Sure.
I think we're moving away from linear concepts to awakening to our multidimensional being. So that means, just for a simple way of explaining it, that all time is simultaneous and space. So to me, karma under that context of multidimensionality is completely nullified and neutralized as long as you have complete self-forgiveness and forgiveness of all others, which sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. So tell me your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I completely agree. The record keepers quite a few years ago said that all karma has been really completed in these higher energies. I think it's very complicated, but energetically on Earth, we as souls who come to Earth have gotten kind of stuck in a pattern and a program, which has created this kind of wheel of karmic life, and it's sucked really for a very long time. And so not only are we, and many of us, and I actively work in the process of unwriting, deprogramming, unweaving a lot of these energies that create this matrix that we call Earth. so that we can shift into this higher vibrational, Gaia, eventually Terra. There are different levels of Earth in higher vibrations. And so, so many of us are really working on that job, that pattern, and so in the quantum field, I can do that, which is one of the reasons I love doing group healings, right? So it's always just a joy and a blessing to get a bunch of people together to do this, because when we clear these old karmic patterns and we clear these old vows and these out of time contracts that keep us stuck, that's more earthbound. It's not really part of who we are as that huge infinite soul. So yes, karma's complete. And now it's up to us to forgive ourselves, to forgive whoever, to be compassionate, to really do our own work and let it go from our energy field so that we can move forward with grace, with ease and grace.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad I asked you that because I had some friends who really firmly believed in karma, and they would give me a hard time. And I said, nope, I'm just not feeling it. I'm feeling like it's an old school teaching. It was useful when you had young souls. They were acting like animals or worse, and just gave them all these rules. But now it's like, we're breaking free, period. Yes. Those that want to, right? Right. So thank you. Thank you for that. And before we go into the part that I really consider the most important that you just shared, is where you're guiding us through releasing old, worn out soul contracts, vows, and even something called curses, which shocked me. But I had a friend who was told by a intuitive that her family lineage had curses on them. Have you ever run into that?
Oh, plenty. Absolutely.
Wow. So
absolutely.
Like just clearing the palette through.
Yes. Well, yes. And I always kind of laugh because sometimes, clients will come and they'll be like, can you clear all the soul contracts, all the karma, all the everything? And of course, the record keepers laugh and they say, if we actually did that, then you would be so unanchored, you would most likely leave your body.
Well, that's a good point.
Right? So
that's a good point. Yeah.
Part of all the patterns are for us to actually embody the teaching or the learning, the soul growth, to be able to really own whatever it was, the lesson, and often to be able to share that wisdom or that light or that vibration then with other people. So we really do come here to kind of learn and grow in that way too. And that part of this old trauma and drama and challenges is about the soul growth. So we can't just erase it all right in an instant, but again, we can go through layers and layers and layers and layers for people. And so we will absolutely clear whatever is up for you to let go of, right? And there's especially things like old vows of poverty that we took in past lives when we were nuns or monks, over the last 1,000 years. A lot of those vows of poverty really are pretty new and worthless. And so we want to, let go of whatever that we can release, as well as those soul contracts, sometimes with groups. Maybe we were druids and we vowed to stay hidden so we weren't killed, or we had a collective healing program with a group of healers or whatever kind of spiritual path we were on back in the 1200s or whatever it was. And part of what we vowed, because there wasn't a lot of light on the planet back then, right? It was the dark ages. And so we would come together as groups and make a soul contract and vow to do all of our healing together as that collective, as that group, because we didn't have enough energy power alone. So we come together. And so these old contracts that say, I won't like do any healing by myself. I will only heal with my group, with my team. They're not helpful anymore. because your team might not be here.
It's a false sense of loyalty.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And we have the light, we have the power, we have the ability to do it ourselves, and to do it with a group. To do group healing is profound because, one person can heal hundreds or thousands instead of it taking, 10 or 12 of us to heal one, right? It was very different energy on the planet back then.
It's so exciting. That is so important to express that, because I pretty much don't follow any groups at this point.
Right.
But we can have many, many vows from all these lifetimes that need to be released. So this is such important work you do. It is such a gift. Now, before we move into that, a couple things. I'd like you to make clear that you're a conscious channel and what that means.
Oh, absolutely. So I connect to the Akashic record, to these beautiful beings of light. And often when I do this work, I'm mostly connecting to my record keepers. But when I do this as a group, I'm not opening anyone else's specific record. So I don't need your permission. I need your specific permission to open your records. But as a group, we can bring in this collective with everyone who thinks, yes, 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 I want to join into this healing. It will open the collective records of everyone who is listening to this interview, right? So you can then have your record keepers help specifically with your healing, which is also how we can make it so much more powerful with just kind of me doing the work, because it's me and all of your record keepers and mine, right? So the collective is these huge beings of light who are here in support to you. So, all you have to do is, yes, I want this healing. And then, we'll do this work. And now I just totally drew a blank on what the rest of the question was.
No, that's okay. That's all right. No, that was
I answered the question.
That you're a conscious channel.
Oh, conscious channel.
And,
right.
and no person comes in and takes you over all that.
Right. So basically I am clairaudient, clairvoyant, claircognizant, clairsentient. So I access all of my clairs. So I hear them, feel them, can bring the quantum Akashic light source energy through kind of my body, my hands, but they don't come into my body. So conscious channeling, it's very different than being a full body channel. It's more that I can hear them, see them, receive all that information. So I say what they say, but they don't speak through me.
Good, because that's a very important distinction nowadays. With the discernment needed.
Right. And that's how I teach people. So again, in that same way, I don't want to try and teach people to channel a being, because it's a very different process. And not everyone's body is made to be a channel. Mm-hmm. And so being a conscious channel really means that you are connecting to the energy and you can hear them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's like source or your higher self, or your, you don't have to go through any middlemen and middlewomen necessarily for that.
Right. I go straight into the Akashic records, right past higher self, kind of up into the Akashic field, right up to source, up to the records, and talk to these beautiful beings of light who are there just waiting to be in service to us.
Okay. So folks, at this point, before she starts the active guidance visualization, if any of you are not comfortable with erasing vows of poverty and different, you may wish to sign off now. And I thank you so much for your curiosity. And the rest of you may inwardly or outwardly say, I agree to have my soul contracts cleared and cleaned, or however you wish to say that, but you need to give permission, and then she will proceed as a group consciousness. So everyone do that now or sign off, and you go ahead, Lisa, at your own.
Okay, perfect. So let's just all Close your eyes, sit back if you are in a safe place to do that. And drop down into your heart center. We like to drop out of our head thinking mind down into our heart. Then we invite our soul to come more fully present down into our physical body as we get nice and grounded and we connect to Gaia beneath our feet. And we ask the divine lords of unconditional love to help us enter fully in this moment as we create this sacred space. Please wrap us in your love and protection and allow us to travel to the highest realms of the Akasha available to us today. Please help as we lay our multidimensional hearts open to divine love and release all resistance. Lords of the Akashic Record, please guide us to the deepest truths we can access now. Support us in healing and releasing that which no longer serves on our true path. We give great thanks for your divine love and support on this journey today. And just staying in your heart center, you may notice the beautiful energy of the Akashic field encircling you. You may feel the love of your record keepers, the love of source energy encircling you. And as we create this beautiful energy field all around the world, right here and right now in this present moment, we ask our Akashic record keepers to help us to clear and release any past life vows of poverty or present life vows of poverty that we may have taken through any time-space continuum. We ask to clear, release, delete those vows for our highest good and the highest good of all concerned as we recycle that energy. So when we make these vows, some of our energy gets stuck in that space. So we lose bits of energy through kind of out time as we create vows or stuck contracts or emotional pain in other lifetimes. And so we get to release the vow and reclaim the energy for your highest good. And we ask the record keepers to assist us in releasing any group contracts that we've made in any past life or any other lifetime. In any community where we vowed and contracted to only heal as that collective group, we release, delete those old group contracts which no longer serve us. And most of us have quite a few of those. We've been healers many times over the last 5,000 years. And so as we release those contracts, we reclaim our energy for our highest good right here and right now into this body now, into your body now. And we ask our Akashic record keepers to assist us in clearing any other soul contract that we might have had with one person that we contracted, again, as healers in other lifetimes, or in this lifetime. We sometimes contract with a spiritual teacher or with a healer to work only with them. And so it's not always conscious. So other lifetimes, soul contracts with one person where we've kind of contracted to devote ourselves to the teacher or to that healer. So we want to clear, release, delete those contracts because they also do not serve us anymore. Quite a few of those moving through. Remember to breathe. Let yourself breathe deeply. I end up blowing out the energy. Sometimes people find themselves yawning or burping. That's all old energy moving through your body. Body wants to release it, right? That's why breathing deeply can be useful, or blowing out whatever feels stuck in your body. And then within this lifetime, let's ask our record keepers to assist us in clearing any soul contracts from usually earlier in our life that are complete, right? So not all contracts are for a whole lifetime. We have a lot of short-lived contracts. Sometimes it's a short-lived relationship or even marriage, or sometimes it has to do even with our family of origin or maybe our birth family, but that we didn't grow up with. I mean, there's lots of varieties, but you don't have to know what it is, but we are asking our record keepers to assist us in clearing and releasing and freeing up our energy from these contracts, which are already complete and no longer serve. So sometimes we just have to consciously release them. And we ask the record keepers to also clear, release, delete any cords from those relationships. It's often kind of an old stuck cord or connection or kind of a hook. Sometimes they look like fish hooks and wires, whatever that might be. So you might feel some of those freeing up from your body. Good. And then we ask our record keepers to go back to the beginning of wherever we started clearing in that kind of non-time space continuum, wherever we started releasing energy, and fill us. Of course, we're filling up ourselves in all of these different lifetimes in the quantum field, but we want to fill ourselves after clearing old energy with our highest Akashic wisdom light, our highest soul vibration, our highest physical level energy that we can now hold after clearing, releasing these old contracts or vows throughout the quantum field, time-space continuum, non-time space continuum, however you think of it. We always want to replace any hole we create by releasing with our highest energy. And so they're doing that through the whole continuum. So you might feel that as beautiful golden light coming in, high vibrational energy. And we ask our record keepers to upgrade our physical level blueprint, if there's a physical level blueprint to bring in to upgrade our physical bodies at this time. That's always lovely, especially right now. So much change with the energies and the light. We get new upgrades, which is exciting. Upgrading our light bodies after clearing some of these cords and hooks and contracts. And we ask our record keepers to help us bring everything into the perfect highest alignment in our physical body for ourselves in this life, this time continuum right here and now. And so it is. And we thank our record keepers, and we close and lock our group records for now. Blessed be. Bringing all of your soul energy back present into the body, getting nice and grounded, dropping all the way back down into your hips and all the way down your legs and feet as we reconnect to Gaia beneath our feet, getting nice and grounded, and opening your eyes when you're ready. Don't forget to drink your water.
Thank you so much for this important gift, Lisa.
My pleasure.
Talk about clearing third deal, matrix, drama, trauma, fear, pain. And we can now transform our planet into heaven on earth, honoring our community here and one another as one humanity. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to do that with you, with the group. It's such a joy and blessing to be able to share this Akashic wisdom, light, and energy with everyone.
So why don't you feel free to let people know how to contact you, where to go, where to buy your books,
Yep. It is really the easy answer is my website, which is Akashic Knowing. And does that show up in the show notes, or should I spell it?
It will show up in the show notes.
Okay, great. So Akashic Knowing, and you'll see my books there, which are also available on Amazon, but you can book readings there. You'll see my upcoming classes. I will have a learning to access your Akashic records in September. So that will be coming up. And again, I usually teach it 3 or so times a year. And there's also home study classes. So if you're too excited to wait till September, you can always do the home study version, which is all just pre-recorded and ready to go. And so it's Akashic Learning to Access Your Akashic Records, Course 1. And that's where you start to do this work. And there's a Course 2 and a whole career mastery and my books all on akashicknowing.com.
Well, thank you so much. You are so radiant with joy and passion, and exemplify someone doing your earth life in a grounded and grace-filled way. I'm so grateful that you came here. Thank you to speed the liberation of souls here on planet Earth Terra by providing a clear, holistic map of our soul's agreement and purpose, and for this joint community healing. So, folks, in fall time, we will do part 2 with Lisa, and she'll share her most recent post-Scotland galactic downloads from the Akashic Keepers that will honor ourselves as reincarnated galactic humans. And also a quick reminder that I put on podcasts all these shows through you were asking that to be so because these shows can be long and you can listen to them in shorter segments if you want. And also, if you found the show useful, which I can't imagine you not, please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and donate if you can, so we can have keep up high, quality videos with no ads. So thank you so much, Lisa. Happy journeys, trails, and I look forward to fall with you again. And thank you, folks, for your curiosity. And we are doing this and moving forward in unconditional love. Until next time, onwards and upwards. Thank you.